Thanks, guys, so much for coming. First off, if you could just introduce yourselves and tell us what you do in the film to the camera. We'll start with you, Dave.
Dave Franco, I play Norman.
I'm Evan Toohey. I'm the writer and director.
I'm Himesh Patel, and I play Declan.
I'm Sarah Goldberg, and I play Dolores.
This is a unique film, so I wanted to start. I'm sorry, it's a boring question, but how did this begin? The Cabbage is illegal. What's the origin point of this story for you?
I think it started 14 years ago as probably sort of I don't remember fully, but it was sort of a writer's exercise, I think, of finding a character who does something incomprehensible and then sort of punishing them with the worst punishment possible. And then from there, it's been this long journey over the last, decade and a half of sort of trying to make that character and her husband make sense and sort of locating them in an emotional place, given that it starts from this place of pure absurdity. So I don't actually remember why I wrote it, but in a way that's the beauty of it, is that I don't remember. So now I've had the chance to sort of go back and make it make sense.
Well, I mean, for you guys, what was your first reaction when you read the script? Because the tone is unique. It's one thing to read it on the page, another thing to see the completed version. But what was your guys' first reaction when you were reading it?
Well, I was totally blown away. I'd never read anything like it, and there's such a specificity to the writing, down to the punctuation. Like, it has a rhythm to the whole piece that I found really exciting. The humor is so there on the page, but then underneath it there's this beautiful pathos about this relationship that I think there's sort of universal themes that everybody can relate to. And it's just very rare that you read a good script and then to read a great script. I mean, I was just bowled over and really desperate to do it from the first read.
Yeah, and just to reiterate, Evan's writing is so wonderful. But I feel like there's a version of this movie that, like, in the wrong hands could be very over the top and very silly. But what I loved in my first conversations with Evan was, like, no matter how crazy the things that my character is saying, he's like, played as real as possible. I want you to spout out stuff about, I don't want to give any spoilers, but like cocaine and like linseed oils and stuff and whatever. But like, he's like, make this as grounded as you possibly can, which is like my favorite kind of humor. And so that was exciting. And I was like, so you want me to play this guy who's wearing a bear skin as real as possible? And he's like, yeah. And I was like, cool, I'm in.
Well, that's what I wanted to ask about, is the tone, because again, on the page, there are a number of different ways this could go, and it is a very singular vision from you, both visually but also tonally. So what conversations did you guys have, and with you as well, about figuring out, okay, how is this scene going to play out, and what is the actual tone of this entire film?
We only met in Estonia when we got there, so the three of us ended up having a conversation, reading through the whole thing. It felt like we were on the same page pretty quickly. And then you just sort of take it scene by scene, sort of day by day, but it never felt like we ever came up against anything where anyone was really missing the point. It really felt like, if anything, it was just conversations about enhancing a specific moment here and there, or just adjusting it based on, blocking or whatever was happening that day. But it really felt like everyone, not just the three of us, but of course our producers, our cinematographer, everyone working on the project just knew what we were aiming for. And I think really that speaks to Evan's leadership, to be honest. Yeah.
Was it the same for you with the cabbages and the legs, just played as straight as possible?
Yeah, I mean, it was pretty wild to wear those pants for 6 weeks. It was very hot. Dave can relate with his bear suit. But yeah, it was, you kind of get a lot for free. Like, the pants are the joke. So you can't really play the joke. You just got to try to walk. And yeah, at a very wide gait. And yeah, walking through the forests of Estonia with so many shapes going in every direction it was its own kind of wild ride in like 21 hours of daylight every day. but yeah, there was so much in it that there was so much on the page that we were trying to meet the rhythm. And I think we all kind of tapped into an energy. We had a lot of fun on set. We were really making each other laugh, but then we were always constantly trying to ground these people in their real relationship, even though we were playing with a slightly heightened tone.
Well, that's, I mean, at its core, this is a film about relationships and like what we do and don't say to each other and what we do and don't admit to each other. What conversations did you guys have kind of working that out between your two characters?
I guess we wanted to get an idea of who they were to some degree before we meet them. You know, we meet them at a very specific point in their life. But, you know, I mean, really their honeymoon that they're on. And it just begs so many, and that's kind of what I loved about the script. I just had so many questions. I was like, why are they here on honeymoon? What is going on? You kind of don't want to ask too many questions of it because it kind of ruins the fun of it. But we were sort of talking about, does he know that she's got these cabbages in her pants, or is he ignoring it, or is he just completely oblivious to it, or what's, you know? And what does that say about their relationship? As well as like just details of like how long do you think they've been together, and you know, how did they get to this point? It's all quite fun to discuss, I think.
Yeah, there's something about like, I think Evan said it early on in rehearsals, but like it's, you know, the lies that we hide in plain sight with each other in a dynamic. And also, you know, there's something in this relationship where there's truly so much love there, but ultimately perhaps they're not right for each other in what they want out of life, and they're at the beginning of their marriage and they're having these realizations of how different they are, and I think that there's something in Dolores that's sort of maybe begging to be broken up with or something, so she doesn't have to call it. Or so there's this interesting dynamic, like a push and pull between them, where they do come back to the love, but then they're negotiating whether or not the love is enough because they don't necessarily want the same things out of life.
And that's something, I mean, I was struck, I'm a huge fan of Barry and your work in Barry,
thanks.
but kind of similar themes there. I mean, over long form. Was that interesting for you to, I mean, different stories, different characters, but to kind of keep exploring
I
that?
think was maybe a far more destructive relationship.
Yes.
Yeah, I was interested in this because like there's such specificity in Declan and Dolores and in the language that they use and the things that they do, and I don't want to give too many things away, but there are little idiosyncrasies. There's so much specificity in the writing, and yet there's something in the simplicity of the dynamic that feels universal that I think people can bring their own relationship experience to. So that I was interested in that, and I'm always interested in things that have a unique tone and feel like a big swing and feel like brave and gutsy and bold. And, you know, Evan really was doing something exciting here and making something that felt so incredibly unique. And so the story drew me in for sure, but also it was kind of like the magic of the whole thing and every element, even the fact that we ended up shooting in Estonia, which is a magical country, and that we had this daylight to contend with that was like kind of made you slightly delirious to be in 21 hours of daylight. Like there were all of these elements that kind of elevated this kind of dream space we were all in of this grown-up fairy tale, cautionary tale.
I heard that possibly Dave's performance in Neighbors 2 was something that a wonderful performance. Honestly, great film.
Snubbed by the Academy. Snubbed.
I did a lot in those 6 minutes of screen time that I had.
I mean, listen, you're playing a
Unforgettable.
himbo in a bear suit in this movie, so I mean, I see good. But that, I mean, what drew Dave is so great in this role. What kind of drew you to cast him in this big part?
Yeah. As Dave said yesterday, you know, it was originally written for like a 55-year-old Australian man. But you know, I think one of the benefits of having worked on this for so long is that it was a very flexible project. And you know, when Dave's name sort of came to us, you know, I think in general, like the exercise here, I think was very much to cast serious dramatic actors and. You know, I think that's how you find the tone of it is to play it straight faced. And I don't know, I just think that these three are even though I think you're all to some degree associated with comedy, I think you are the greatest, like, 3 dramatic actors who consistently get cast in comedies. I think that, and often I think that the comedies that Dave's in are grounded by his character as well. And I think we talked about that the first time. So I joke a little about Neighbors too, although it is a dear movie to me. But he always plays it dead serious, even in a silly comedy, and that's what we needed for this tone. So it was sort of a no-brainer.
Speaking of Dave, we're hearing rumblings of 23 Jump Street.
Are
Might
you?
that be coming together?
You're the second person who's brought this up today.
Maybe it's wishful thinking.
What are you hearing?
That maybe it's coming back.
I hope so.
Yeah. You ready? You want to make a plea?
I mean, you tell me. I'm in.
Call Phil and Chris. Get them on board.
I love Phil and Chris so much. I pray this rumor is true.
Okay. Good. We'll make it happen.
Seriously though, who's telling you that?
We're just hearing that maybe.
I think there's one
development.
guy around who's just making this up and going around Sundance
Sorry.
spreading that.
It's a valuable franchise in
meant.
a studio that's kicking the tires. Well, thank you guys so much, and congrats on the film. And thanks for coming by.
Good questions,
Appreciate
man.
it.
Thank you
Appreciate
so
it.
much.
Thanks,
Great
guys.
questions.